Yes, my name is Marie Mora. I'm a professor of economics. What inspired me to write this book is it's a topic that I've been very passionate about for many years. So an opportunity came up to be able to put together this volume. I jumped on it. It's something that the economic status of the Hispanic population is something I'm extremely interested in studying and sharing that information with the public.
And I'm Alberto Davila. I'm the professor of economics and chair of the Department of Economics and Finance. And just like what Marie said, I've been working on Hispanic labor market issues since 1980s, early 1980s. And this was a good opportunity for us to collaborate with some of our friends and colleagues.
Soy Elvia Ardalani y escribí un poemario que se llama Callejón Cachaní. Callejón Cachaní es la segunda parte, de una trilogía que inicié hace aproximadamente 10 años sobre el contacto entre dos culturas, la cultura específicamente la cultura mexicana y la cultura persa o la cultura iraní. Y básicamente Callejón Cachaní es eso, es un recorrido por las calles, o por la calle más bien, que conforma esta zona, ¿no? Obviamente es un recorrido poético, aparecen distintos personajes. Yo quería que la gente supiera a través de estos personajes líricos, que la gente se enterara de cómo es vivir en esas partes, de cómo son las personas, cómo son las historias de amor, cómo se aman, cómo se quieren, cómo se odian, todo. Y al final de cuentas creo que la idea es humanizar y deshacer estereotipos tan perpetrados, ¿no?, en todos los lugares. Y así nació Callejón Cachaní.
My name is Bimal Vanik. I'm a professor of chemistry at the Department of Chemistry, College of Science and Mathematics. I have written the book on beta-lactams. In this book, we try to summarize all the applications of beta-lactams that are possible, and also we focused on the reactions, mechanism of their reaction, and how to make beta-lactam using novel pathways. This kind of procedure can help the future generation to design new beta-lactam antibiotics, anti-cancer agents, or any other agents that may be used for different kinds of medical disorders. We believe that this book may find wide application in organic chemistry, medicinal chemistry, and drug discovery.
Yeah, I'm Robert Bradley. I'm a professor over in the art department. I'm an art historian, archaeologist. I was in a graduate seminar at Columbia University, and I was doing a paper on Tiwanaku's Gateway of the Sun. And I collected all this data, all these old records, showing this monumental, beautiful gateway and some of the travelers that went there. And I did the presentation, kind of liked it. And a few years later, I was on a dissertation fellowship in Peru. The article it explains why this happened, and it explains by taking what the mindset was for these 19th century travelers, what they were seeing in Europe, and what they saw, or how they took these notions that they had in their heads and applied them to a ruin that really they shouldn't have. And that's why they trumped up this thing that was something different than they thought it was. Or that's what the article discusses, all the travelers. The imagery is kind of neat because I did spend a while, compiling it. And it gives some conclusions on, maybe how we can avoid these things and some lessons learned.
My name is Dr. Cynthia Jones, and I'm an associate professor of philosophy here at UTPA, and I'm the director of the Ethics Center. The one that's probably the most interesting, I think, is the one in this book. It's a horrible title: Emerging Pervasive Information and Communication Technologies, Ethical Challenges, Opportunities, and Safeguards. My chapter in here is on elderly and technology in homes of the elderly. And what brought me to this project was a combination of a couple things I work in, which is ethics and technology, computing, and medical ethics, which is what my specialty is. So I also like to talk about vulnerable populations, and the elderly are an interesting vulnerable population when it comes to technology for a vast number of reasons.
My name is Dr. Cynthia Lynch. I'm an associate professor at UTPA in the Public Administration program and the Public Policy and Global Securities Department. I was inspired to write this book by my co-author, Jinping Sun, who is an associate professor at the University of California in Bakersfield. And when we were trying to establish our early careers, we decided to gather together the articles that inspired us as PhD students and put them together into a coherent package so that it could help us teach with our teaching and also that we could share them with our students. So the first book on ethics came out 2 years ago, and the budget book came out last year.
My name is Francisco Guajardo. I'm an associate professor of educational leadership at UT Pan American. One chapter I wrote for a book that really wanted to make a statement about the accountability system nationally and how the overemphasis on testing has really impacted the lives of children, the lives of families, the lives of communities, and really how schools work. My chapter is really a personal testimony of my son. My youngest son, whose name is Macario, when he was 10 years old, he's 20 now and is a junior in college, but when my son was 10 years old, he decided that he did not want to take the state test. I wrote a chapter for a book that is entitled Principle 2.0. Principle 2.0 is a whole series of case studies of how departments of educational leadership or enterprising professors are working to develop new principles through a series of technologies.
I'm Jamila Banu, and I have written a book chapter on animal models of menopausal metabolism, mainly because I've been interested in a lot of work in aging and menopausal animal models, and when this invitation came by, it was a big opportunity for me to really sit down and put most of my work together along with some other animal models that were that have been designed to study age-related and menopausal diseases that have been caused or that are very prevalent.
Hi, my name is Javier Kipuros, and with regards to my textbook, the inspiration really had to be my students, and I wanted to design a book that used pedagogical methods that really explained concepts and ideas in a manner that students at the junior level were beginning to grasp. I wanted to write material in a way that my students could appreciate and understand it, and wasn't just something that they felt was over their heads, but rather something that they could make use of on a day-to-day basis in terms of solving engineering problems. And that was my intent with this textbook. I wanted to take the way I learned the material and the way I envisioned it in my mind, the way I came to terms with understanding it, and trying to put that into a textbook, trying to illustrate that through examples, through words, so that students didn't have to go look at 10 different places to get this one concept or idea, but that it was all right there in words and pictures presented in a way that was very accessible to them.
My name is Jessica Lavariega Monforti. I am an associate professor in the Department of Political Science, and I am also an associate dean in the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences. I wrote 2 book chapters this year. One was on team-based learning in political science, and the other was about urban agency in grassroots Latino politics, where we focused on Texas specifically. I was inspired to write the book on team-based learning, which actually comes out of medical education programs, because what we had was a series of students taking required classes here at UTPA who didn't really understand what they could get out of a political science class. We also wrote a book chapter on Latino urban agency and grassroots politics, precisely because I could compare Miami to South Texas. And that was a very interesting perspective, where you have 2 Latino populations, one Cuban origin, one Mexican origin, very different from one another, yet reaching the same kinds of goals.
Hello, I am Dr. John Darcy, and I've been asked to describe the experience that prompted me to write my book, The Japan Master Tax Guide. When I started out my career decades ago as a CPA, on my first day in the office, I was handed a copy of the then most popular book on Japanese taxes in English, Yuji Gomi's Guide to Japanese Taxes. The Japan Master Tax Guide is written by an American and for English-speaking people, based on the sort of reasoning that we use in approaching taxes, which is different than the reasoning used by Japanese tax practitioners, which the Japan Guide by Yuji Gomi is designed for.
I'm Karen Watt. I'm a professor in educational leadership. What inspired me in the beginning to actually write the chapters was I was using the textbook in my classes, and the editor asked me after the first edition if I'd like to collaborate with some other individuals on the chapters. So the chapters are about my field of research and my interests in providing special programs for students at the secondary level, and also for career education.
My name is Linda English. I was inspired to write this book from a collection that I found when I was in a graduate class doing my PhD. I found a collection, an archival collection of store ledgers that had never been explored by anybody. So it was a rich collection, and from that collection in graduate school, I decided to expand my story to Texas and across Oklahoma in the 1870s and 1880s. And I think I've uncovered a lot of interesting dynamics of community life as a result of it.
Okay, so my name is Marcy McMahon, and I have a book that just came out called Domestic Negotiations, Gender, Nation, and Self-Fashioning, and U.S. Mexicana and Chicana Literature and Art. The book is inspired by my love of literature, so I just love Chicano literature and art, and I just am very passionate about theater. And so the book looks at literature, art, and theater in conversation around issues of domestic space and gender for Mexican American women.
Pues nada, este es el libro que escribió, del que voy a hablar un poquito, y lo que me movió a escribirle es que llevaba mucho tiempo investigando sobre la poesía modernista y sobre la literatura modernista en general en América Latina, y nada, me di cuenta de que tenía un componente espiritual o religioso muy fuerte que muchos críticos no habían tratado con profundidad. Y entonces decidí hacer una antología de los poemas que tratasen los temas más espirituales o más propiamente religiosos de este grupo de escritores. Entonces creo en ese sentido que es un libro imprescindible para entender esta literatura, el siglo del modernismo. ¿Okay? Entonces nos salieron en total unos 150 poemas de todos los escritores principales de toda Latinoamérica. Muy bien, estamos muy contentos, parece que se ha recibido bastante bien y habrá algunas reseñas por ahí en algunas revistas especializadas.
My name is Maureen Flynn, and I wrote two book chapters in 2012. One of them was about acceptance, and the other one was about acceptance and commitment therapy as a way to treat addictions. And I was interested in writing a chapter on acceptance as it relates to this therapy and other therapies because it's becoming more and more important that we work with our clients on these issues, both accepting external situations that they don't have control over, as well as internal thoughts and feelings that you may not be able to control also. It mattered to me to write this chapter for clinicians who are working with people with addictions.
My name is Myra Infanta Sheridan, and I was inspired by several things to write my collection of short stories. And I drew inspiration from people that I had met in my father's small Mexican Pentecostal church. These people usually had very unique stories. As I was writing these stories, I would remember the situations that I would witness as a child. It was through these stories and these characters that I had encountered as a child that I was able to compile different situations. Really, it was those times that inspired me to write my stories.
My name is Paul Saka. I just published an article or a chapter in Philosophy of Language. Now, you ask about inspiration. And inspiration, of course, is very mysterious. The ancients believed that inspiration came to us in the form of being inspired or breathing in the ideas and the force of God or the gods. No one really knows where inspiration comes from. I do think, though, that the old folk wisdom that those who are best prepared are most likely to be struck by inspiration. And in my own case, I think that wide reading across disciplines has helped me. So in my work, I have challenged ideas put forth by logicians. And I think that the reason I was able to come up with these challenging ideas is that I am familiar with ideas put forth by psychologists and anthropologists.
My name is Philip Gascoigne. I'm a professor in the Department of Psychology, and the book that I wrote is Neuropsychology from Physiology to Clinical Practice. The main reason I wrote it was I wanted to try and get more students to read the textbook for both my undergraduate physiological psychology classes and the graduate neuropsychology class. In writing the textbook, I was able to get the price down. This means that there's more students who are able to afford the book. Another advantage, of course, is that the content exactly matches that of the lectures. So that improves the retention of the material by students. So they get it twice.
I'm Rebecca Mitchell, and I co-edited an anniversary edition of George Meredith's Modern Love in Poems of the English Roadside with Poems and Ballads. I decided to work on the project because it's one of the most important poems in the Victorian era, and I was shocked to find that it was out of print. It's very important to consider its original context and the way it was presented originally by the author. So in doing the edition, we returned Modern Love to its context, put it with the original poems in the order that they were originally published in. We added extensive contextual sources and the original illustrations that appeared with some of the poems when they were first published. And this way, it's introducing this very important poem to a new generation of readers, and they can appreciate it in the same way that the original readers in 1862 would have appreciated it.
Today, I was asked to mention to you about one of these projects, the first one in what we plan to have an ongoing series about the Norquist family. The Norquist family arrived in what is today Edinburgh in 1924 and established themselves as farmers just north of the current location of the university. They are still farming much of that property to this day, but in the past they actually farmed the land under which now stands the College of Arts and Humanities, Social and Behavioral Sciences, and quite honestly most of the UTPA campus. The study of this family, conducted by students, was published in 2012 and 2013 in the form of this major report of more than 300 single-spaced pages authored by the students, and then an abstract, if you will, this book published by students out of it as well. It was supervised, this work, by myself, as well as colleagues Margaret Dorsey from anthropology, Sonia Hernandez from history, Kenneth Summey from biology, and Juan Gonzalez from geology. We're very excited about this series, and we're looking forward to present in future years on the Cantu family and also the Atwood Evans family, all of Edinburgh. Thanks for this opportunity to bring this information to you.
My name is S. George Vincent Nathan. I'm the chair and professor in criminal justice, and I wrote 2 articles, one pertaining to the Beccaria and his theory, and in relation to that I talked about the implications of the theory from a sociological point of view. I felt that Beccaria's theory, which is actually the foundation for the criminal justice system today, is not very well critically looked at, and that made me look into the theory and analyze it from a sociological and anthropological perspective and write this article. I called for a change in the justice system from the foundation that Beccaria established a long time ago, and there should be some changes in the new direction that people have not taken up that. So I'm just indicating the importance of the change that should be made. Yeah, the second chapter that I contributed in a different book, the title of the book is Crime and Justice in India, and the chapter heading in that book is Prisons, Corrections and Residuism in India, Culture and Society. I wrote this along with my wife, Lynn Vincent Nathan, just like the previous one. She was also the co-author. And the central idea in this particular chapter is that there's a tendency in human beings to commit crime, of course, but the tendency actually varies from culture to culture. So in order to sort of show that, I involved India and compared India with Japan and the United States. And what I found in general was that in some cultures, offenders do realize that they have done something wrong and try to sort of change. And I found that cultures that have a lot of supports for crime or doing the wrong thing or deviant things, deviant types of behavior, tended to support various reasons for committing crime. And I think in highly developed, especially economically oriented societies, various reasonings and justifications are developed so that they provide some reasoning for people to why they should commit the crime. So I'm just bringing all these things together and trying to sort of show that how crime can be prevented and how offenders can be changed.